That movie is a shit show. What you think you see, what you think you hear, that's what it's about. It's all a theater of the mind. No, it's garbage. It's garbage. Mood and atmosphere. Now that I really like. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I want to see.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? What's happening? It's a little impromptu this afternoon. It is Wednesday, October the 6th, 2021, 1:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Dave McRae, coming to you live from the VoiceMann Studios in Toronto, Canada. Where are you around the world? What's happening? 9 days away from the release of Halloween Kills, or maybe you're seeing it on the 14th, or maybe you saw it last week. Maybe you're seeing it next week on the 12th. I know somebody who is, and I am hoping to get them on the show here on the Wednesday, a week today, to have a non-spoiler, maybe a spoiler review. We don't know yet. That'll be happening probably next Wednesday. We got to work that out. That is Lewis from the Nerd Report, and that's going to be a fun time. Hopefully we can get him on and do that. That's going to be a lot of fun. But today I wanted just to jump on, and I'll take your questions as well. So if you have a question, if you want to super chat and you want to get it in now, because then by the time I'm done going over what I'm going over, you know me, then I just go right into, the super chats if there are any, or you can hold off and wait until I'm done. It's entirely up to you. I just want to let you know you don't have to wait. You can get it in, and even though it goes by and you no longer can see it, I will go back into the list and read it. I'm not going to miss it. But I wanted to, I just wanted to go over to Rotten Tomatoes, and I wanted to look at the Halloween Kills reviews because I find this interesting. I've talked a bit about this on the channel, and, I guess I could say spoiler alert, but again, I really hate this. I really hate that. And I say this with all due respect. I don't mean to sound pretentious when I say this. I hate it. I hate that, that everybody is well, not everybody, but hang on, I'm just putting my phone on silent for a second here. It's going off like crazy. It's so difficult. Really, there is no way to avoid spoilers, because what a spoiler is to one isn't a spoiler to the other. I've talked about that 1,000 times, right? So I keep looking over here because I have a screen over here. But the issue is, unless it's an obvious spoiler, like, somebody's death or some big name that we didn't know was going to be in something shows up, or like, you know what I mean? That everybody can kind of agree that, yeah, that's a spoiler. Maybe that's something that would have been nice to experience, in the moment and not know beforehand. But I'm just getting so tired of just the what is just normal information about a movie, even when you haven't seen it yet, people losing. It's like, oh God, you're not going to make it. You're just not going to make it. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't understand how so spoilers, I guess, if you want to be careful of that. I don't know what some of these people have written in their reviews, but this is from Rotten Tomatoes. And I find this interesting because when some of these reviews first started to come out, and admittedly, there's some recent ones from just in the last couple of days, and there's obviously some from the Venice Film Festival about a month or so ago. And but what do these reviews really say? Now, are there people that definitely are reviewing the movie and have reviewed the movie that are just not horror fans, right? They're just not horror fans. They don't get it. They don't kills. Of course that exists, but that doesn't mean that every fucking negative review that comes out about Halloween Kills is somebody that just doesn't get horror, or that just somebody that doesn't like horror movies. You know what I mean? I mean, that's something that somebody says because they're emotionally attached to the film and they want it to do well and they're a big fan. And then when somebody comes in and poops on their expectation and they're like, "No, fuck you, you don't know what you're talking about anyway." You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what ends up happening. Does that happen? Are there people out there that don't know their asses from their elbows when it comes to horror, and they're reviewing a horror movie and they're kind of like, and they say things and you're like, well, what'd you expect? Of course there's a lot of death. It's a movie called Halloween Kills. Yes, that exists. But I want to kind of go through a few of this here and kind of see what they are saying and see if how these are written, and kind of show you a little bit, because how again, I'm not saying that Rotten Tomatoes should matter, but unfortunately it does matter. People pay a lot of attention to it. People put a lot of stock into it. The entertainment industry uses it as a benchmark. For goodness sakes, we know this. I've talked about it on here before, but it is interesting to know that there are a lot of people, maybe the average moviegoer, that doesn't even realize that a 10 out of 10 and a 6 out of 10, according to Rotten Tomatoes, is the same score, right? Crazy, right? So I just kind of wanted to go over and take a look at a few of the reviews that are out there now. I think there's 25 reviews. Hang on a sec. I will go over to the other screen. Just give me a second. There's something like 25 reviews or something, and it's currently sitting at a 57%, I think, on Rotten Tomatoes. So what does 57% mean? Oh, it means it's shit. It means it's dog shit. The critics fucking hate it. No, it doesn't mean that. No, it doesn't mean that at all. 57% is 3% away from a nice, big, round, red tomato. Tomato, tomato, potato, potato. Who the hell says potato? Anyway, does anybody ever say potato? Tomato, tomato, potato, potato. I'll have a baked potato, please. Nobody says that. So no, it doesn't mean that. 57%. Look, it's never. But this is why you have to kind of go through the weeds and look at this shit, because just going by the score and seeing a beside the movie, you're like, oh, I guess it's not very good. I guess the critics didn't like it. No, 57% basically means that half the people liked it, half the people, nah. That's what it means, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's basically what it means, right? A 5% on Rotten Tomatoes, a 19% on Rotten Tomatoes, yeah, that's not good. That's kind of like, well, the vast majority of people did not like it. The vast majority of critics, right? But when you're sitting at 57% on the cusp of a nice, shiny red tomato, I mean, that's not bad, So anyway, I wanted to kind of go into it and show you guys what I'm talking about. And maybe we'll read a couple of the reviews and see, see what some people are saying and whether or not the review is, worthy of paying any attention to. So let's do this. So here we are. This is a Halloween Kills review. So here's the first one here. Now here's something that's interesting, right? So look at this, right? You see that nice, big, shiny red tomato right there from Aaron Newworth, I think is how you say that. We Live Entertainment, or We Live Entertainment, probably We Live Entertainment, actually. Nice, big, shiny red tomato. This was posted today. This was today. But look at this down here. What does that say? 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10. He gives the movie a 6 out of 10. Right? If you just paid attention to this, you might think, oh, he loved it. He gave it like a 9 out of 10. No, 6 out of 10. So that's why it's so important that people understand how Rotten Tomatoes works, right? And how Rotten Tomatoes calculates what is fresh and what isn't fresh. Because a lot of people don't pay any attention to that. They just look of whether it has a or a tomato. And I understand that. Most people don't have the time nor the fucking care to start going in and figuring out how it works. But it's not, it's a little more involved than what you might think, right? Here's somebody here, Clint Worthington, gave it a D, right? Here's 3.5 out of 5, which is a nice tomato. Now this 3.5 out of 5, actually, that's that's close to the same score. But let's see here. There's a 5 out of 10. There's a 7 out of 10. There's a 7.5 out of 10. There's a 4 out of 5, a 3 out of 5. So I'm just looking for a really high score. 3 out of 5. I was hoping to get maybe, let's go over to the next page here. Just keep that 6 out of 10 in mind. Why are we not moving over here? What's going on? Oh, there we go. No critic reviews. Oh, was that it? Did it? This is live, folks. Fuck it. We'll do it live. Don't you love when the internet doesn't cooperate when you're doing shit live? That's strange. There should be more. Now the internet's just spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. I hope the internet is still on. It says I'm still live. I hope I'm not going to suddenly just crash. Okay, let's go over here. Maybe Rotten Tomatoes is down. Maybe the whole internet is down. Is the internet down? No, it says I'm still live. Am I live? I'm on, right? Yeah, you guys can see that. Okay, well, we'll just let this spin and spin and spin, and we'll keep it there for a moment. I don't know why all of a sudden Rotten Tomatoes is not showing up. Okay, well, I'll go over to the other screen for a moment, and we'll let that sort of figure itself out. Rotten Tomatoes is down. Hey, everyone. Nerd Report. Hey, Lewis, my man! I was just talking about you, says Rotten Tomatoes is down. Okay. What are the odds? I was just going to go over that. I was just going to go over it. Well, okay. Well, let's bring up, I do have another, let's bring up this. This is a review from, Scott Mendelson. Okay. This is from Scott Mendelson, who gave it a 5 out of 10. Okay. He gave it a 5 out of 10. And you might be thinking as a Halloween fan, oh, fuck him. That's fair. That's fine. You're allowed to do that. He says, Halloween Kills review, a nostalgic mixtape of previous Michael Myers sequels. Okay. So what does Scott have to say? Now, Scott is a pretty educated dude. He's been doing this for a long time. He's not some guy named, not that I'm just giving you a bit of perspective. He's not some That doesn't mean you have to agree with him. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that he is somebody that is capable of intellectualizing and articulating his thoughts pretty clearly and being able to defend his arguments, right? So he's not somebody named Bimbo Bob who just got really big on a movie blog and because he has a lot of followers was able to get Rotten Tomatoes certified, which does happen. So I'm just letting you know that he's somebody that has been covering the film industry for a while. I've read him quite a bit. I don't always agree with what he has to say. Actually, I find myself probably disagreeing with him more than I agree with him. But there's a lot of times where I've read some of his reviews or just think pieces on the film industry and the box office. He has a very big, he has a very big sort of interest in box office and statistics and box office results, which is really fascinating. I haven't read too much of it recently, but I know that he has a very big interest in that. Anyway, so his headline here is Halloween Kills Review, a nostalgic mixtape of previous Michael Myers sequels. So let's go over this. Again, spoiler alert, if you are the kind of individual that just knowing that the fucking movie exists, I'm just letting you know that I've already read this and there isn't anything in here to me that's a spoiler. Okay. But everybody's different. So let's go through. Oh my God, there he is in front of the fire. Spoiler. No. Okay. I'm just busting your balls. Okay. So, and again, this is his review from today or yesterday. And he gave the movie a 5 out of 10. So what's a 5 out of 10? Well, a 5 out of 10 is kind of like, yeah, it was okay. Like I'm kind of in the middle. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. It was just kind of, 5 out of 10. You know what I mean? It wasn't great. I didn't think it was great. And there's reasons why he doesn't think it's great. That doesn't mean you won't. You could say, what the fuck does Scott Mendelson know? Well, he's a pretty smart guy. And, but to be fair, I don't know if he's a horror fan or a slasher fan, but I also think it's important too that, yes, films should be judged by their target audience. I absolutely agree with that. I think that there are certain movies that are made for certain people, certain audiences, right? A certain demographic, and they are generally going to probably like the movie over the average moviegoer. I do agree with that 100%. And you do have to take that into consideration. Take It's Me, Billy, right? It's Me, Billy is a Black Christmas fan film. If you don't like Black Christmas, if you're not a fan of Black Christmas, if you thought the first one was boring and a snooze fest, which some people did, then you're probably not going to like It's Me, Billy. I mean, you may appreciate it for its the way it looks or the way we shot it or whatever. But in terms of like the story and the character and getting excited about It's Me, Billy, you probably don't give a shit because you're not a Black Christmas fan, right? You could make a subpar Jason fan film or Halloween fan film shot on an iPhone with terrible lighting and whatever. And that movie is going to get way more views than, Black Christmas, It's Me, Billy will because of the IP, because of the property, right? So, there are certain films and certain IPs and things like that are targeted towards a certain demographic and type of fan. We have to take that into consideration. However, that doesn't automatically negate every critique that comes from somebody who maybe is a casual horror fan or just a movie fan in general. Because if they're smart reviewers, they're generally looking at the film as a whole and critiquing it the same way they would critique any film. It doesn't mean that a negative review on your favorite horror movie should be automatically dismissed because the individual maybe is not a big Halloween fan. Do you know what I'm saying? It's just important that there's a bit of nuance here, right? You know, we got to keep that in mind. Anyway, and I don't know whether he is or not, but it's a well-written piece. Armed with a sense of gravitas that it never really earned, along with a seemingly made, and I totally agree with this. I've talked about this for how long? How long have I talked about this? He says, with a seemingly made it up on the press tour narrative about the film representing traumatized badass women taking down the patriarchy. Now, I am not here to say that I am against badass women. See, this is what you have to do now in the world because there's a war on context, nuance, and intention. And, but I have to say, I'm not against badass, strong women. I would like to think that my whole audience is not against that either. However, I do not believe when David Gordon Green, and now, maybe he'd be able to correct me, but I do not believe, and I've said this for 3 years, I do not believe that David Gordon Green's intention was to create a film with this subtext and subplot about this strong generational trauma. I don't believe that at all. I believe that that was what Jamie Lee Curtis glommed onto, gravitated towards, because she talks about it nonstop. Nobody else I don't really hear David Gordon Green or anybody else talking about it. I mean, maybe, Allison does or, Judy Greer does, but I believe that Jamie Lee Curtis needed that. She needed something to glom onto to do another fucking Halloween movie. Because why am I doing this Halloween movie? I've done like 5 of them. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Or 4 of them, I guess. Why am I doing this, right? And 4 of them before the 18 one. And it's like, she needed a reason. It makes her, because she's an activist, she feels very strongly about this, about what's going on in the world. And okay, fine. I mean, if that helps you, lace up the shoes and get in front of the camera, okay. But I don't believe for 1 second that when David Gordon Green and Danny McBride were writing the Halloween 18 film, they were like, yes, they did make her suffering from PTSD, but this whole subplot about generational trauma and the patriarchy and the world and its evil and rising up again, and it's a metaphor and symbolism for what's going on in society right now with Trump and, the Capitol riots and this, like, fuck off. No, it's not. First of all, the riots happened before, you shot the movie before the riots happened anyway. But I believe that's just something that they've glommed onto because it's and the studio's not going to say, Jamie, don't go, because you can say that and it kind of works. Like it makes sense. You could totally see it. Anyway, I'm not the only one that has noticed that, clearly. But that's my opinion. But that doesn't mean I'm against strong women, okay? So don't fucking come at me with that shit. So armed with a sense of gravitas that it never really earned, along with a seemingly made it up on the press tour narrative about the film representing traumatized badass women taking down the patriarchy, there we go. Blumhouse's Halloween capitalized on generational amnesia to present its legacy sequel as something new and of the moment. We seemingly forget that we already saw kick-ass survivor Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis, taking back the night in Steve Miner's Halloween H2O. And while maybe we were wrong in 2007, we were supposed to be disturbed by and appalled by the grotesque and pain-centric violence inflicted against innocent civilians in the Rob Zombie-directed Halloween remake. Even if I was wrong about that 2018 Halloween, David Gordon Green's Halloween Kills is exactly the kind of sequel that such a nostalgia-driven success inevitably spawns. Universal's Blumhouse film depends too much on its connections to the original Halloween. Now, you might be thinking, but that's what I want. What do you expect? No, just let's hear what the man has to say, right? He's a smart dude, and he may be right, because remember, he's looking at it from a different perspective, but these are things like, there's no doubt that when you go watch the movie, right? Like when I saw The Last Jedi, the very first time I saw it, I walked out of the theater. I knew I didn't like it, but it was very difficult for me to admit it. But I remember sitting in my car with my girlfriend, and she hated it. She hated The Last Jedi, and she's a smart cookie. And we were quiet, and we turned to each other, and we were like, so do you want to go first? Do you want to go first? Do you want to go first? And I said to her, she says, will you go first? I said, I thought it was garbage. And that took me so hard. It took me so much to say, because I want to love it. And I'm trying to like make excuses and I'm not saying that this is going to be The Last Jedi. Okay. Please understand what I'm trying to say. What I'm basically trying to say is that because there's so much hype and there's so much nostalgia and there's so much expectation, that you're either going to go in and be completely disappointed because it didn't meet your expectations. You're going to go in and be completely thrilled because it met and exceeded your expectations, or you're going to be in denial, because sometimes that can happen too. So you just have to take, we have to remember those things too, right? That, even if the movie has a lot of kills and a lot of nostalgia, that doesn't necessarily mean it was a great, you know what I mean? Like, but it all depends on the individual. We begin with an ambitious 12-minute prologue taking place right after the events of John Carpenter and Deborah Hill's Halloween, detailing how this Elseworld version of Michael Myers' 1978 rampage, during which Halloween 2 never happened, came to an end. Impressive period detail aside, the recreation merely serves an arbitrary debate held later on in the film about who is to blame for this latest bloodbath. No spoilers, but everyone forgets about those meddling podcasters from the last film. You could skip the first 21 minutes and still pop in right as the present tense narrative is kicking into gear. As we see the Strode women, Jamie Lee Curtis, Judy Greer, and Andy Matichak, begging the approaching fire trucks to let Michael burn in Laurie's trap house. Spoiler, the firemen don't heed the advice. Of course, we know that, right? And we get the first of a few tightly shot and awkwardly staged mass murder sequences. We know this, folks. Calm the fuck down. The violence is, and what are you doing here? If you have no one to blame but yourself. Why are you talking? Hey, you came into my house. The violence is as brutal and cruel as last time, let's try that again. The violence is as brutal and cruel as last time, which is fine considering this franchise. Maybe we were wrong to whine about Rob Zombie's rampages, but the generational hypocrisy is bemusing. It's also somewhat disconnected, with a couple of quick mass slaughter beats surrounded by a few conventional, look out, it's Michael, stalk and kill sequences. Mikey, pushing 61, as of the last movie, puts up a fine score with over under half his combined Halloween to Halloween 6 kill count, To paraphrase my favorite line from Kentucky Fried Movie, Michael has the chance to kill 2, maybe 3 dozen people. All right, sorry, I just want to make sure I got my cursor there. Even as the film arguably wants to be seen as discussed, sorry, it's a little small, so I'm trying to be careful. Even as the film arguably wants to be seen as discussed as and received as more than a straight up slasher sequel, Halloween Kills is a slasher flick. So that it delivers the carnage as a straight up sequel in the ongoing Halloween series counts in its favor. So basically he's saying that, hey, it's a slasher movie. And if you're looking to go in, he's basically saying what I'm saying. If you're looking to go in and see blood, guts, and gore and carnage, you're going to have a good time. Like, that's what this movie delivers. It's a slasher sequel, and that's exactly what it is. And that works in its favor, 100%. Once we get to the present, following a sloppy sequence where, now again, this is his opinion, okay? Once we get to the present, following a sloppy sequence where characters introduce themselves in relation to what role they played in the original Halloween. And you know what? I have a feeling I'm going to sort of agree with that. I don't know why, but I've seen the most recent clips that they've released. And again, I'm seeing it. I need the whole context of the movie, but it's lines like, it did seem when Tommy, when he burst into the room and Laurie's in the bed and he's there, he's like, Laurie, Tommy, what are you doing here? And like, it feels like this could be a case of there's a lot they're trying to get in such a short period of time. And therefore some things that you want to breathe, some reunions, you want there to be a breath and to breathe, because this is the first time you're seeing not only this character in 40 years, but it's the first time you're seeing these characters see each other in 40 years or however long. You almost want that moment for them to breathe. You want want the reunion to feel like, wow, you want to, as an audience, you want to revel in that feeling. And it sounds like, according to what Scott is saying here, that some of the reunions are kind of like, okay, yeah, here, yeah, okay, hey, and on to the next thing. And it's kind of like, okay, you know what I mean? Maybe not. Maybe that's how, he felt about it. Maybe it's not how you're going to feel about it. But that wouldn't surprise me, because there's a lot they're trying to get in here. But an interesting thing to take note of. I keep moving my cursor over there. Okay. The film getting, where did I go here? Once we get to the present, following obviously we introduce themselves in relation to Halloween, the film gains a little bit of steam. I took issue with the off-the-cuff way the patriarch of the Strode family met his most comical end, and how that arguably negated the film's retroactive "girls get it done" messaging. He's talking about Ray in the first film, when he was there and Michael just walks up behind him out of nowhere and stabs him in the back, and then him and his penis are found in the closet later. To be fair, the sequel almost overcompensates by repeatedly reminding you of that deeply personal loss. Judy Greer is easily the MVP this time out, including a heartbreaking early moment when it finally hits her that her husband is dead. In a movie that feels like much of the cast is playing to the bleachers, that means playing to the audience, Greer offers up a nuanced, there's a word you don't hear too much anymore, I love it. Greer offers up a nuanced performance, even if the movie can't decide if she's the voice of reason or the naive defender of the status quo. Interesting. So it looks like Judy Greer, and again, I've read the script, so I know a lot about what happens. I know some people have seen it. But it does seem like that. Yeah, she does. It's more her film. And this isn't a spoiler. It's out there now. We know that Jamie Lee Curtis, there's not a lot of Jamie Lee Curtis in this film. We know that. Karen stands against a panicked and manic citizenry, riled up by a grown-up Tommy Doyle, Michael Anthony Hall, who are attempting to take mob justice. The plot flirts with modern-day consequences to a horror movie murder spree, while expanding the previous film's generational trauma to all of Haddonfield. Alas, the mostly analog reaction isn't that far off from the panicked mobs riled up in Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers 30 years ago. Couple that with portions. Now I know it was 33 years ago. Okay, it's just a.
Oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. It wasn't 30 years ago. It was 33 years ago.
There's going to be somebody out there that's going to do that. Couple that with portions set in a hospital alongside an injured Laurie Strode, like in Halloween 2, and pontifications positioning Michael as more than just a human boogeyman, like in Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, and you have a Halloween 3 version 2.0 that feels like a loose cover of 3 of the first 4 Michael-centric Halloween sequels. I guess they are saving Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, for Halloween Ends. So basically what Scott is saying there is that, again, don't take him literally, right? Like, he's using this as basically a big metaphor to say that there's so much that has already been done in the Halloween movies in the past that, when you watch Halloween Kills, in his opinion, when you're watching Kills, we're not seeing anything new, really. We're just seeing it in a new way, and they've upped the body count, and there's definitely feels from some of the previous films, some of the more intense previous film. So he's not saying that Halloween Kills is Halloween 4, The Curse, or Halloween 4, The Curse of Michael Myers. Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. No, it's exactly like Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael, because today's fan base and in society, we do lack so much nuance. There will be people that will read that and go, "What? It's like Halloween 6? Okay." And then they go and they watch it. It's not like Halloween 6. It's like, that's not what he was saying. He just means that there's dabbles, there's essence of a lot of sort of previous films, and maybe that's a good thing, right? Maybe that's a good thing for you, right? Maybe it is, but it could be a valid criticism or a valid point, right? It's important to remember that. Okay, so Jamie Lee Curtis spends most of the film in a hospital bed. This deprives audiences of the Laurie versus Michael variable. It also demands key exposition be repeated as separate characters learn what we already know. If you and that's something too, right? Is that there, as a writer, and it's not that this is wrong, there's many ways that you can relay information, right? You can relay information sometimes the audience already knows this information, and then you're watching the characters on screen discover information that you already know. Exposition is a tricky thing. Exposition should, if you need to get exposition out to let the audience know something, first you have to make sure that the audience doesn't already know it. Okay, because then it serves no purpose. Or B, that your characters don't know it, but there must be a good reason why your characters are having this conversation. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel contrived. I believe that this conversation is happening. There's motivation. There's motivation for these characters to be having this conversation at this present time. It doesn't feel just like an exposition dump, like, oh, by the way, in case you didn't know. And sometimes you see that in films, right? So that's basically, what he's talking about there. Is that he's saying that it also demands key exposition be repeated as separated characters learn what we already know. So we're watching the characters learn information that we already know. And depending on how it's executed, it can be fine. If you add up narrative redundancies and flashbacks to both Halloween 78 and Halloween 18, there's shockingly little present tense storytelling. That's interesting. Much of the impact comes from characters in the original Halloween dealing with their emotional trauma. The memoriam is spearheaded by Tommy Doyle, who was barely, and I was just thinking of Jamie Lee Curtis and everything, who was barely initially more than a bystander. Hall, who I generally like, the Dead Zone is excellent, is not very good in his opinion. And to be fair, this doesn't really sort of surprise me in some ways, because we've also noticed that Michael Anthony Hall has largely been void of the marketing material for this movie, which is surprising to me. I mean, at face value, because when you think of the original film, he was far more integral than Lindsay Wallace was, right? Because when you look at the original movie, it was Tommy that Tommy believed in the boogeyman, right? And Lindsay really didn't, but Lindsay's a kid, and so like the real arc here is Tommy and Laurie, and it was because of Tommy that at the end of that movie, Laurie says it was the boogeyman, and Donald Pleasance is, as a matter of fact, it was, right? That's the arc. She didn't believe, but her saying it was the boogeyman is her, effectively saying Tommy was right. Oh my God, Tommy was right. It was the boogeyman. So I always thought that when you were bringing back Tommy Doyle, and maybe if he survives Halloween Kills, he'll have a bigger role in Halloween Ends. But I'm just saying that it is surprising to me at face value, not being a part of the production, that he isn't marketed more in the film. Now, I know what you're thinking, but haven't you read the script? Do you know what's going on? I'm speaking objectively, okay? I'm trying to speak objectively about this, right? That it is surprising that they've gone a certain way to not market him in more heavily market him. So reading something that says, he doesn't have much to do, that doesn't surprise, because he's effectively not in any of the marketing material either. Right? So, it makes you wonder how important and how integral is he really to the film? And it's a missed opportunity. His monologues and attempts at leadership suggest a man inserting himself into a narrative for self-gratification. Also, the notion of disproportionate reactions to the original event in a film opening 20 years after 9/11, no less, is something this overly, yeah, I see what Scott is saying there, but I don't think it's, let me take a swig of water. I don't think, I see what he's saying, but I don't think that's completely necessary. I don't necessarily agree with him with that. But the Tommy Doyle character, yeah, if you're looking for Tommy Doyle to be like, have a humongous role in this movie and like an integral, he doesn't really. And that surprises me. It surprises me they didn't offer that. It's kind of too bad. It's kind of too bad. Anyway, moving on. I just don't agree with that statement. But Halloween Kills is slightly more enjoyable and slightly more compelling film than its predecessor. In the same way, many franchise-specific sequels are superior to their predecessors. Once we get the origin stories out of the way. Halloween Kills is still another sequel cut from the It's All Connected cloth of F9, the crimes of Grindelwald? Never heard of that. Spectre and the Rise of Skywalker. Your eyes may roll into the back of your head during the copious Halloween callbacks and nostalgia-driven references. I'm just picturing me going, oh God, but maybe not. Making Tommy Boyle, obviously he means Doyle, just a typo, folks, doesn't mean he's an idiot, into a co-lead alongside Karen Nelson was a miscalculation. Moreover, as noted above, the film almost entirely depends on your emotional attachment to the first film for any kind of impact. However, there's clearly an audience for this kind of memberberry. See, he's talking about you guys. He's talking about the fans. Franchise filmmaking and the copious blood and gore deliver on that front with at least a couple of polished kill sequences. On the plus side, I honestly have no idea what to expect with Halloween Ends, especially as the film ends. No spoilers, I promise. With a finale that, like offhand, The Dark Knight or The Last Jedi, could be a new status quo or series finale conclusion. But we're getting the threequel, and the door is now wide open, with Grandma setting the spotlight in 2018 and Mom as a co-protagonist this time. I'm guessing the trilogy capper will focus on Andy Matichuk's Allison Nelson. He's just speculating. Like the much superior Creed series, the first Legacy sequel was a loose remake of the first flick, while the second was a cover album of the previous sequels. And like Creed, there's a third chapter on the way, and now the new trilogy must somewhat stand on its own 2 feet. What's Tom Atkins up to these days? And that comes from Scott Mendelson. Says here, Scott Mendelson studied film industry both academically and informally with emphasis in box office analysis for over 30 years. So I wanted to read that to you because I think Scott's a pretty intelligent guy. He acknowledges that, there's an audience for this. But a lot of what he says in that, and again, I haven't seen the movie yet. I've only read the script, but looking at the script, and I know people who've seen it, I have a feeling that I'm going to have a similar feeling. Like, I have a feeling I'm going to enjoy the film, but when we want to really analyze it, and that's what I do. I mean, that's the perspective I come from. I have a feeling I'm probably going to feel some similar things. Now, it's also important to note that this is the middle chapter of a 3-act play, and it's probably going to feel unfinished. It's going to feel abruptly stalled because it is the middle chapter of it's the second act of a 3-act play. And that is something that you have to keep in mind. So if it ends abruptly, if it feels unfinished, if it feels a little rushed, let's wait and see what Halloween Ends delivers next year and whether or not we are able to sort of complete the story and then watch it in its entirety, right? I mean, I remember saying that to a bunch of people after The Force Awakens. I was like, well, hang on, we got famous last words there. But yeah, there's, when you are, when you are watching the middle chapter of a trilogy, it can sometimes feel unfinished. But I have a feeling that there's going to be, in terms of it, feeling like there's a lot in a short period of time, I'm probably going to feel the same way. Lack of character development and sort of being introduced to characters that we haven't seen in 40 years, and we just kind of get it over with in a few short sentences and then we move on. I don't like that kind of stuff. I mean, when you look at It's Me, Billy, one of the compliments we got on the film was the character development and how we were able to manage such strong character development basically in 14 minutes or 15 minutes and in a 42-minute movie. We really gave that film time to breathe and, get to know the characters a bit and their relationship. It can be done, but so I personally, as a filmmaker and as a fan, I do like that if you are reintroducing characters, as a fan, because of the nostalgia and the emotional attachment, I want there to be breathing room. I want there to be like a moment between Tommy and Lori and where they're talking and, and there's like, you know what I mean? I don't want it to feel rushed. But it sounds like that's what we're going to get. Now, again, I know what you're thinking. Well, haven't you seen the script? Don't you know that? But you have to remember that, reading a script is very different than watching something play out on screen. There's a lot of nuance and details that are not in a script, right? There's a lot of the nuance in the performances and how long you linger on a shot and how quickly you move away from the shot, whether the camera is moving, whether it's a close-up or medium shot. These are not all apparent in the script. It would be apparent in the shooting script, but not in the initial script. So we're just reading words on a page and we're imagining it in our own minds. How that relates to the screen is very different. So there's a lot of things that I've read in the script that I quite like. There's some things where I'm like, I wonder how they're going to do that. I'm not so sure about that. And we'll see. So, but because there is so much, and like Scott Mendelson said, it looks like the flashback is about 12 minutes long. That might not seem like a lot of time, but that's a lot of time. That's a lot of time you spend, during your prologue. So it's a lot of time. Maybe not as long as some of you might have thought, but certainly because a big chunk of the movie isn't in present day, I have a feeling that some things might feel rushed. And then, of course, we know there's a lot of kills, right? There's a lot of gigantic kills that happen in this movie. Blood, guts, and gore and carnage, and which is great for you slasher fans out there. That's amazing. And that's really cool. But then where this movie may suffer, and sort of the commonality that I'm seeing amongst Scott Mendelson's review and a few others that I've read, and even a few people I've, that have seen it, is that, and again, it's all subjective in terms of what you expect and what you want and what you desire. But one of the commonalities that I'm seeing is that there isn't a lot of story. Like there's a story, obviously, but it's very fast. It's very rushed, and some of us might feel at the end like, oh, that was a lot of fun, but okay, that's, okay. So, where the first film, there's a lot of more breathing room, right? There's a lot more breathing room. So, but that doesn't surprise me. And then some people might be watching going, well, it's called Halloween Kills. What do you expect? And it's like, yeah, I understand that, but it doesn't necessarily mean just because it's called Halloween Kills and there's a lot of kills that you can just arbitrarily do whatever the fuck you want and not pay attention to, substance, right? It's the story, it's the substance, it's the nuance of the breathing room and the interaction between the characters, which at the end of the day, will have you revisit it again and again and again, because it's the characters that you live vicariously through. It's the characters that you want to watch them go on these journeys again and again. Listen, blood, guts, and gore is fun, and a high body count is great, and just to watch, Myers tear shit up can be fun for some people, but I don't know if it's got the longevity to be something that, will stand on its own 2 feet 2 or 3 years from now. I remember the reviews from most people from Halloween 18 was off the chain. People were loved. It was fantastic. I said, let's revisit it. Talk to me again in a year or two down the road. Well, now it's 3 years down the road, and there's a lot of people that have changed their tune. They're like, yeah, it's okay. You know what I mean? So there's definitely that thing where you first watch it, you're excited. That's why I think it's important to watch it a couple of times, let it marinate, and think about it a bit more. But I think that's going to be if anything that I'm seeing up front and immediately that could be problematic is that there's a lot in a short period of time, which doesn't leave a lot of breathing room, and it kind of feels like it's all icing and no cake. And maybe that's okay for you. Maybe that's what you want. But we'll see. We shall see, right? Anyway, let's go over it and see what you guys are saying in the chat room. And I know some super chats did come in. Let me see if I can get them. I believe it started with, if I missed one, do let me know. But I believe it starts with Ernest Williams sends in $5. Thank you very much. It says, hey, Dave, Rotten Tomatoes is back online. Oh, okay, cool. Well, it's kind of, yeah, okay, maybe okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ernest. Power Pack 90 sends in $5. Says, but Dave, don't spoil me if there's a dancing donut with a knife in the movie. I know what you're talking about. Now that's scary. Just kidding, friends. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much, Power Packers 90. Appreciate that. He's talking about a hate mail I got a long time ago. I think that's what it was, right? Something like that. Super chat, very generous, comes in from Intel Wild, my man, Intel Wild. Great to see you here. Sends in a very generous super chat. Says, Dave, the mob in Kills is representing the protests that were fighting against police brutality last year, while Michael is representing famine and climate change. Just busting your balls, buddy. Oh, man. I don't buy it for 1 second. Don't buy it for 1 second. Great to see you, Intel. Great to see you, my man. Nate A sends in $2, says, had Paul Rudd returned, marketing would be huge. Possibly. I just don't think there's any need for Paul Rudd to return. It makes no sense. Maybe. Jonathan Grant sends in £5, says, what's up, Dave? Did you notice that the black woman who gets stabbed in the neck is the same woman who showed the reporters the grave in H18 piece? Yes, I did notice that. I absolutely noticed that. So, what's it? Rotten Tomatoes is back online. Let me see here. It is. It's back online. All right. Well, let's scoot over here for just a second. And see what's going on. So Rotten Tomatoes is back online. We were looking at some of the all. Is that how I get it? Yeah, there we go. That's how I was on. So yeah, so a 6 out of 10, right? So, it's interesting to note, right, that even though Aaron Newworth thought. I just think it's important for people to understand how Rotten Tomatoes works because you can see he actually gave it a 6 out of 10. And we live in a world now where anything that's not a 10 out of 10 is dog shit. I can tell you that I gave a movie a 7 or 8 out of 10 and most people's first response would be, oh, why didn't you like it? What do you mean why I fucking like it? I gave it a 7 or 8 out of 10. The fuck you talking about? It's just because we live at two ends of the spectrum is too extreme, right? It's either shit or it's 10 out of 10. And if it's not 10 out of 10, if it's 8 out of 10, it means it's dog shit. That's not reality. But according to Rotten Tomatoes, anything that is a 6 and above gets a tomato. So interesting stuff. Now, what did he have to say? He gave it a positive review. What did he have to say? He says here, let me move this over. Halloween Kills review. The boogeyman strikes back again. Let me just see what he has to say here, just a little bit. See if we can get through this quickly. Arriving a year later than anticipated, it is nonetheless excited to be back in Haddonfield. And let's see if we can find some commonalities. And I'll read one that's a really good review. After a year later than anticipated, it is nonetheless exciting to be back in Haddonfield, Illinois. Well, it's fun for a viewer, at least. This time around, Michael Myers is taking no prisoners in Halloween Kills, which feature a higher body count than any of the previous installments in the series. I suppose that's good news for the gore hounds, as Michael isn't exactly backing off from his style of brutality and being a bit of a Halloween prankster. That's good. I like to hear that. Otherwise, the intrigue of this entry comes from its ambition. Ambition, right? Now, what were we just talking about? Ambition, scale, size, volume, right? It tells me, just that sentence tells me alone that this Aaron fellow is like acknowledging, there's a lot going on in this movie, and they're trying to pack a lot into it. And sometimes that can work, and sometimes that can be at the detriment, right? With a broader scope and thematic heaviness attempting to overweigh the simplicity that has worked best for the series. I'm a bit at odds with the overall results, so he feels sort of conflicted here. Still, I also can't say that I'm not eager to see how this all ends. To anyone who thought that Michael was dead and gone in the 40 years later entry, Halloween from 2018, what are you? New? That 11th entry in the long-running slasher series was always just part of a larger story crafted by writer Danny McBride and writer-director David Gordon Green, with the blessing of the master of horror himself, John Carpenter. Beyond that, however, Halloween Kills exists because of the gambit of pitting Michael Myers against legendary Scream Queen Jamie Lee Curtis once again. That hook, along with the solid buzz and reviews, allowed 2018's film to make a good chunk of money for a modestly budgeted Blumhouse feature. Modest. It's $10 million. The question is, where do you go from here? Or from there? Picking up minutes after the ending of the previous film, with Laurie Strode, Curtis is on her way to the hospital with her daughter, Karen, and her granddaughter, Allison. Michael is still caged in the basement of Laurie's burning house. However, the arrival of firefighters proves to be a disaster, as it gives Michael the opportunity he needs to free himself. So what does this mean for the rest of Halloween night? Well, while I was a fan of the previous film for how it once again distanced itself from a previously established while distance itself from previously established continuities in favor of being a direct follow-up to the 1978 original, I had my share of issues, along with the specific character reveal that felt forced. Sartain. Evil Alex says, critics aren't fans. They don't care for details like a good mask, walk, and kills. That's a blanket statement, Evil Alex. It's a blanket statement. You are correct that a general critic, but that doesn't negate the criticisms that they have, right? It doesn't negate the criticisms that they have. It all depends on what you want. It's important to remember that if all you care about is good mask, walk, and kills, well, then you're probably going to love the movie. You know what I mean? But you also have to look who you're talking about here. The Halloween, purist himself. So I'm probably going to agree with more of the constructive criticism than maybe somebody like yourself or somebody who just wants kills, right? I look at these things through a similar lens, being a filmmaker, looking at it, trying to be objective, but I always try to be fair, right? I always try to be fair, but I'm looking at it through a bit of a different lens. So, I just think it's important that we don't automatically toss out constructive criticism of Halloween Kills just because they didn't mention the walk, the mask, or, what have you, right? It's important to remember that. Along with a specific character reveal that felt forced, that's Sartain. I couldn't entirely embrace the idea of the multiple generations of Strode women suddenly becoming the backbone of the film. While female empowerment in a slasher film isn't exactly new, the way Halloween suddenly wanted to champion their combined efforts to stop Michael fell a bit flat. This doesn't surprise me. And it doesn't surprise me because if it was never the intention, but something that Jamie Lee Curtis, and I'm purely speculating here like I always have, something that Jamie Lee Curtis, championed, something that she on her own, and let's not forget, she's also an executive producer. She was in the first one. I think she is on this one as well. So she's got some say here. It wouldn't surprise me, like I've said, that she's made it about this. She's taken something that wasn't really there or was there more in subtext and brought it from your subconscious mind to your conscious mind, brought it from the background to the foreground as part of the story, part of the theme, when in reality, something like that may have been best served to be interpreted. Rather than every press junket, it's trauma, Capitol riots, Donald Trump, anger in society and this kind of stuff, where it's kind of like, is it really about that? I thought it was just about a dude in a mask coming back to get you. And I mean, sure, you can have the town angry for sure, because the town has probably suffered over the last 40 years. It's a small town. Who knows how big it's grown? And it has that stamp on it. It has that sort of that black eye on this town. That's cool. And now Michael's back and they're like, fuck that shit. We're going to take him down. But you leave it up to the audience to draw the parallels, to make the connections through sort of the subtext that you apply. You don't necessarily try to, throw, and I'm not saying they have, I've yet to see the movie, but we're seeing some commonalities over some reviews. Now, not every review will say this, but but it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me because I'll never forget when Jamie was on the press tour for Halloween 18 and she was suddenly talking like every 5 seconds, every chance she could take to talk about trauma, generational trauma, she did. And it's like, but I never heard David Gordon Green talking about it. Now, maybe he has, but he doesn't usually talk about that when he's talking about, I mean, maybe now he is, but, and now we see posters that say 3 generations of Strodes, it almost like they've sort of just, it's been fabricated to kind of buy into that when it never really was there to begin with. It was supposed to be more in the background. Anyway, it doesn't surprise me. And I can understand how if it was never the intention to have it in the foreground and the intention was for it to always be in the background and open to interpretation, then I can totally understand why it would feel a little shoehorned in if you do bring it to the foreground. Because it's kind of like, where's this? Why is it this all about this all of a sudden? But who knows? We'll judge it on October 15th, won't we? By comparison, and I'm not saying that it's wrong to have that angle on the film. I'm just saying that, I'm speaking objectively, right? I'm speaking as objectively as I can. By comparison, Halloween Kills actively embraces some key themes early on and relies on them throughout to inform the story. It's a big swing, but it's hard for me to find fault in the 12th entry in a slasher series attempting to do something different and appropriate for the times. The film wants to address the mob mentality and distrust in the systems designed to protect us. While a product of the time, given how the film was written and filmed before America was struck by a domestic terrorist attack earlier this year, it's undoubtedly all the eerie to see how these things form in a horror film. Well, it's not the first time. Evil dies tonight, shouts Tommy Doyle, Anthony Michael Hall, to the young boy Laurie babysat back in 78 during Michael's first killing spree. This forms a chant adopted by the other survivors and a large portion of the town, who find themselves devoted to hunting down Michael and finally putting an end to his massacres. But to what avail? Rather than working as a diversion that keeps people on the streets, with Michael picking off whomever he wants at any given time, though he does get in his stabbings, so much of the plot is built on this premise. Not helping is how much weight the film puts on Hall's shoulders. I think Hall is a capable actor, and while he's adopting the personality of a familiar type, single-minded alpha male with a particular view of America, this is not his finest hour. So there's somebody else that kind of says, yeah, Tommy, not really much in this movie. This doesn't stop Green from getting creative with his direction. As for one of the rare directors to return for a sequel in this franchise, joining the ranks of Rick Rosenthal and Zombie, there's certainly an effort to build off his minimalist approach in the 2018 film. The way he films overcrowded hallways to convey the panic associated with mob mentalities is quite strong. A surprise use of flashbacks to specific moments in time proves to be more effective than it may sound on paper. Even some of Michael's killer moments feel as though they could be framed as comic book panels. Interesting. Keeping the slayings in mind, Halloween Kills is a brutal feature. Perhaps not as severe as Zombies Halloween 2. That's interesting. According to this guy, perhaps not as severe as Zombies Halloween 2. Far better than it was given credit for at the time. Fail. But many innocent people get slaughtered in increasingly inventive ways. It helps that Green can stage these moments with a level of suspense that is creepy enough. Well, that's good, because I've talked about this on this channel too, that it's important that you also, I don't want, how many times have you heard me say, like, I don't want it to be, A, B, C, D, kill, A, B, C, D, kill, 1, 2, 3, 4, kill, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's got to be suspense. Like, there has to be a journey for the payoff. That's the suspense that you build. Suspense is letting the audience know that something is about to happen, but drawing it out for the audience and allowing them to feel this anticipation. That is what suspense is, right? And so if you don't have that, if your movie is largely void of that, which Halloween 18 was, you just have a moment and then a payoff. And for me, it doesn't do much for me. So it's nice to see that they have built some of that journey and suspense there. I like that. He's also able to impressively balance our empathy for these people while embracing the bloodshed taking place. Okay, well, that's good too, which basically means care about these characters. Okay, well, we'll see. We'll see on October 15th. Do all of these disparate elements? Am I saying that right? Huh. I just want to see if I'm going to say that word right. That's weird. I want to see if I'm saying disparate. Right, disparate. Okay, that's what it is. I'm a voice actor, folks, and what happens to me when I see a word, I'm like, is that disparate or is that disparate? No, it's disparate, right? I have to phonetically sound it out. Welcome to the voice actor in me. Okay. Disparate. Yeah. Okay. No, I know now. Do all these disparate elements make for a thoroughly entertaining feature, though? Perhaps over time, over time, I talked about that earlier and I haven't even read this, such as after the already in pre-production Halloween Ends arrives in 2022. So maybe Halloween Kills at first watch will be like, yeah, that was a lot of fun, but okay, not quite sure how to, okay, you know what I mean? And maybe we will need Halloween Ends for us to appreciate or, more or maybe not like so much Halloween Kills. Hopefully to appreciate it more. That's entirely possible. Having a complete perspective on how the middle chapter ultimately functions with help. As it stands, while I admire the craft of this film, this film relies heavily on what has come before. There is something to admire about attempting to tie aspects of this series together, keeping in mind that all of the original sequels don't count, but it is hard to look past some of the more cringeworthy elements. For one thing, there's not a lot of Curtis this time around. While the link that once tied Michael and Laurie together has been served, she's still primarily waiting around in a hospital, not unlike 81's Halloween 2. That leads to numerous supporting characters, some played by actors from the original film, taking over. While there are certain standouts, such as Greer, who has a lot more to do this time around, others are stuck with bad dialogue, obvious callbacks, and more elements that take the film down a few notches. Okay, again, according to him. Should I be this hard on the 12th entry in the Halloween franchise? Well, I do ultimately like this film for all the ways that it tries to be different. However, regardless of my expectation for a slasher film, I look at Halloween Kills for what it is, and it's standing in a series I really enjoy. With that in mind, yes, I see it trying to do too much without fully nailing the most inspired of its ideas. It does nail down stab, impale, etc., other areas. Michael's efforts to be the ultimate Michael's efforts to be the ultimate trick-or-treater are appreciated. John and Cody Carpenter, along with Daniel Davies, who do the music, are having a blast delivering on the score for the film. Plus, the setup for whatever's next has me entirely on board. None of this is to say Woo! Struggling through this one, folks. None of this is to say, and it's ironic, isn't it? None of this is to say only one needs to see Halloween Kills to get to the next. That would be like me saying people should watch Halloween 3 Season of the Witch merely because it's part of the Halloween marathon. In reality, 3 is first-rate, Tom Atkins is cool, and the ending is fantastic. So no, this is still a solid entry in the series, even if I see it as a slight come down from the previous entry. What it lacks in certain areas, it makes up for by delivering very literally on its title, and how it makes one think about what the phrase Halloween Kills means in its context. That alone is an inspired thought, but you also get Michael ramming a buzzsaw through a guy's face. Happy Halloween, folks. Okay, so what is this guy basically saying? Well, he's saying some of the things that we've talked about before, right? Which is simply, and that's not a negative review. I see King Liam saying he's just reading the negative reviews, obviously hatred. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That is so not true. This guy gave it a positive review, regardless of whether you realize or not. 6 out of 10, and this is why people don't know what Rotten Tomatoes does. 6 out of 10 on Rotten Tomatoes is a positive review. I'm going to go read a really good review for you guys, just to balance it out, okay? I'm going to balance it out. I'm going to give you a really good review, just so you can say I haven't done it. But I'm reading both ends of the spectrum, because I want to see if there's commonalities. That's what I'm looking for, is commonalities, right? And, here's a guy who's a fan of the series. He loves Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. He likes the series as a whole, but he liked 18, but he's even said that basically, to sum up what he's saying, it's a lot of icing, very little cake, and for that, it's fun, but, it is what it is, right? But it all depends on what you want from your Halloween. Do you want blood, guts, and gore and carnage, and you don't really care about story? I mean, you hope it's, serviceable, but you could watch a Halloween film with a serviceable story. What does serviceable mean? It means, pedestrian, predictable. It's fine. It's not great. It's just, it is what it is. But you're coming for Doyle and Brackett and Marion and Lindsay and blood and guts and gore and well, then you're probably going to like it. But don't expect much from the story is the commonalities we've seen from these two films. There's a lot in there, and some people are kind of left behind. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's true. I could watch the movie and go, I don't know what the fuck these guys are talking about, right? This was fantastic. But it's important to remember that. Okay, now let's go and find a really good review. Okay? We're going to do it. We're going to find a really good review for you guys. So you can't say that I didn't do it. All right, so let me move this over here. So let's go find a good review. 3.5 out of 5. Let's see if we can get one higher. 4 out of 5. Okay, what do you think? 4 out of 5? Do you want me to read this one? It's a 4 out of 5. I'm looking for 5, a B, a C, a 1 out of 5. Oh, we don't want to attack that. There's another 4 out of 5 from Ben Rolfe, discussing film. I've never heard of him. I'm not saying he's not competent. 3 out of 5. Okay, let's go to the next page, because last time I tried to get to, and there's only one review on the next page, and it's 3 out of 5. Okay, so with the reviews that we have here, let's go to that 4 out of 5. Let's go to a 4 out of 5, okay? All right, 4 out of 5. Oh, hang on a sec here, guys. Bear with me, this is live. Fuck it, we'll do it live. Fuck it. All right, 4 out of 5. Where is she? Here she is. Okay, so is it Latif? Total film. All right. Well, we know Total Film, don't we? All right, let's see what she has to say. All right. Okay. Halloween Kills review does exactly what a middle chapter should do. All right. Let's see what she has to say. Is it all love? Let's see. There are multiple ways in which Halloween Kills is boxed in. For one, it has to plausibly all take place on the same night as its 2018 predecessor. It also has to explain how a gravely injured, aging serial killer could survive being trapped in a flaming basement. And it needs to leave enough unresolved to justify its already announced sequel, Halloween Ends. So given those restraints, it's a wise choice on the part of the returning director, David Gordon Green, and co-writers Danny McBride and Scott Teems to barely move the narrative forward at all. Okay. So what's she saying there? Well, the narrative sort of doesn't move that much. Like it's sort of maybe again, it's all happening within like an hour or two or something, right? And let's not forget, according to Scott Mendelson, we're spending about 12 minutes, at least 12 minutes in the prologue before we get to present day. That might not sound like a lot of time. It's a lot of screen time. That fucking eats up a lot of shit. Anyway, so given those restraints, it's a wise choice on the part of returning director David Gordon Green and co-writer Danny McBride and Scott Teems to barely move the narrative forward at all. Where the previous Halloween explored how the trauma of the original 78 massacre affected Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis, this toggles the action backwards and forward to see how the fallout manifested across the entire town of Haddonfield. We know this. Cancel that, sorry. Entire town of Haddonfield. Compelling, did I get that right? Yeah, Haddonfield. Compelling takes emerge on potent themes, survivor's remorse, mob mentality, the ghoulish fascination that can surround murder sites. Ooh, interesting. Many horror movies become frustrating as characters make daft decisions, putting themselves in unnecessary danger. But Halloween Kills intriguingly suggests these characters are almost doing it on purpose, lining up to be cannon fodder as a way of processing their deepest fears. Easier to come to a nasty end than live your whole life terrified. Ooh, it's kind of like a Shawshank Redemption thing. As flashbacks remind us, Michael Myers killed a mere handful of people in John Carpenter's original movie, and the years have made him more efficient. The world's most nimble Ensenor? I think that's how you say that. I'm trying to think of where the emphasis on that. Absolutely tears through Haddonfield citizens, although the film's most upsetting death is one he's only tangentially to blame for. Several of Halloween Kills are creatively executed, veering from schlocky fun to sad. I love reading some people when they get it word salady. Schlocky fun to sad moments where spouses are forced to silently watch their loved ones become that's going to be tough. That's going to be tough. Become human pincushions. That's like, that's going to be one of those, like, you know, can you imagine? Oh, that's tough right there. That's tough. That's tough. Better still are the moments where Green stops for a minute to give those deaths some weight, as when a mother spots her son in a morgue, or when Laurie's daughter, Karen, Judy Greer, washes her husband's blood from her wedding rings. See, I like that. That's a nice moment to let, and that's cinematic language there, right? You know, washing the blood from the wedding rings, and, you know, kind of what that means, and it's great. I like that. Curtis Greer and Will Patton are all wonderful in their returning roles, with Tom Mann also doing a great work as a younger version of Patton's Deputy Hawkins, pulling off some of the campier dialogue. A few other casts, particularly those playing other survivors, don't fare as well. Particularly those playing other survivors don't fare as well. Okay? Understand that? Just want to make sure I understand that. And she is going on a little bit, nowhere big enough for their, between going a little too big or nowhere near big enough for their reactions. Okay, so this sentence right here, you see this sentence right here? This is a commonality we're finding, right? And remember, this is a positive review from Total Film Magazine. This is a positive review from Total Film Magazine. But there's a commonality between this review, the slightly less review, and then Scott Mendelson, review of 5 out of 10, middle of the road, right? The commonality, what basically she's saying here is, yeah, some of the returning survivors are, you know, don't have much to do, or when they do, it's either the dialogue is too big, it's too forced for the moment, or we don't have enough time with them to justify, you know, there's not enough breathing room, it's a little campy, or, you know, we're seeing that commonality between all three of these reviews, and this is a 4 out of 5 review. So that's all I'm saying. It's just, what can we expect, right? Are there commonalities we can find kind of through this stuff? It's fascinating. I find this kind of interesting, because then we're cross-referencing and we're looking at, are there patterns that we can pick out, even from the positive ones? That doesn't mean you're going to feel the way as her, but it's a 4 out of 5. It's a great review from Total Film Magazine, who is talking about, the problem is, you know, is that a few other casts, particularly those playing survivors, don't fare as well, right? Either being too big or nowhere near big enough with their reactions. But there's all the synth music, grotesque, portmanteaus. How do you say that? Let me see if I think I know what this is. How do you say this one? I think I know what it is. Portmanteau. I wanted to say portmanteau. It's portmanteau. Sorry, guys. Voice actor time. Portmanteau. I would have said portmanteau, but it's portmanteau. Okay, cool. There we go. And jump scares you'd expect. Ultimately, this does exactly what the middle of the trilogy, tetralogy entry should do. Have a blast while ably setting up the big finale. So that's what she says. So there you go. There is a positive review from Total Film Magazine that is basically saying, hey, you know, it is what it is. It's a lot of fun. But reading her review, I get a lot of kills, a lot of fun because of the kills, a lot of icing, a lot of nostalgia, you know, and some of the characters are underutilized, or they either come in a little too hot, you know, and for the scene, or, you know, whatever. So that's a commonality that we've seen over the 3 reviews. That doesn't mean you're not going to like it. It doesn't mean you're not going to disagree with it totally. And this is going to be your favorite Halloween movie of all time. This could be your favorite Halloween movie of all fucking time. You rank it number 1. Absolutely. But I like looking at this kind of stuff. I find it fascinating to go in, and actually read the reviews, not the headlines, not whether it's got a or a tomato, but read what people are saying. And as you can see earlier in the show today, even reading Scott Mendelson's review, he's educated, he's smart, and I feel that he gave a professional, constructive critique. You may not agree with him after you watch the film, but he didn't, to me, sound like somebody that just doesn't get slashers. Because he even said in his review, there's clearly an audience for this. But for me, as a reviewer, I'm looking for this, even in this movie, because the 18 film had a bit of that. This one seems a bit more shallow, a bit more kind of more icing, right? And maybe at the end of the day, which all reviewers, or at least these three, have all acknowledged, is let's wait to see what Ends gives us, right? Even they've said, even they've said, let's see what Ends gives us and look at it in retrospect as a trilogy and see then if it fits and if it makes sense and if it okay, you know what I mean? Because we know that Halloween Ends is going to be smaller, more self-contained, and I believe David Gordon Green even said something to the effect at a Halloween panel the other day that there's almost like a coming of age thing about Halloween Ends. Don't quote me on that, but I'm paraphrasing, but he said something to that degree, which I found really interesting. So it's fascinating. I like looking at this stuff, but and I know people don't care about Rotten Tomatoes. I don't care. No, but you do. And the reason, you may say you don't, and I believe that you don't, but people do. And people, they put stock into it. And the thing is that there has to be consistency. If Rotten Tomatoes doesn't matter, then Rotten Tomatoes also doesn't matter when a reviewer gives your favorite movie a positive score. You can't, it can't matter when it's positive, but doesn't matter when it's negative. It either matters or it doesn't. And because that's just cherry picking something to fit your own bias then, right? It either does or it doesn't matter, and at the end of the day, it shouldn't matter. You should go and watch the movie, yourself. And always remember that Rotten Tomatoes is just a bunch of film critics, some of them educated, know their shit, but there's a couple of people on there too who are Rotten Tomatoes certified. That is John from Billy Bob's Movie Blog, who has a big following, and he's just a fan and he gets on there, whatever the case is. I would like to see Rotten Tomatoes restructure a bit. I don't know if they do this, but I would like to see Rotten Tomatoes restructure a bit and have, you can have a general sort of review, like a general score, but then it would be cool to have like horror scores or, comedy scores, drama scores, or something to that effect. I mean, I don't know if that's too much, but I think that would be interesting. I think that'd be interesting to have something like that, but it's important to remember that Rotten Tomatoes is not a board of governors. They're not the be and all. They came onto the scene and the entertainment industry saw it as a terrific way to utilize it for marketing. And that's what they do. When a bunch of people say a movie is positive, the entertainment industry and the studios glom onto that. They have deals in place with Rotten Tomatoes. They use that as part of their marketing. Certified fresh. It's about money. And so over the years, they have been able to use Rotten Tomatoes and create this illusion that they are more important than they really are to the average person. The problem is they are important. And this is what sucks, is because you put so much, you may not think you do, but generally speaking, people put so much stock into it because a Rotten Tomatoes score does and can affect whether somebody goes and watches a movie or not. It's crazy. So all I'm saying is that just do your due diligence. If you're going to look at the score and you don't care, get a sense of it. But if you are going to dive into it, read the reviews, because always remember, a 6 out of 10 is the same as a 10 out of 10, according to Rotten Tomatoes. So just remember that. But I find this interesting and fascinating to be able to kind of go through this and kind of get some commonalities and see maybe what to expect. Okay, let me just, go and get some of those super chats that came in, and and then we'll take super chats and questions now till the end here. Okay. Where did I leave off? I left off, I think I left off Intel Wild. Nate A sends in no, I got Nate A. It was the Paul Rudd thing. What's up, Dave? I got Oliver Mercer sends in £5, says, hey, Dave, you read that David wants more. Have you read that David wants more Halloween films after Ends if they won't be, if they went back and followed H4? Okay. No, Oliver, what this is, people have got this confused, and I stand to be corrected myself. This did not come from David Gordon Green. Now, maybe he has said this, I don't know. But the article that I read, it was an article, it didn't even come from Blum. Blum is open to, it came from Blum that he is open to continuing Halloween after Ends. But what that looks like, we don't know. We have no idea what that means. I've been very specific on this channel in saying that I want Halloween Ends to be the last Halloween movie in this franchise, in terms of this sequence, in this story connected to the 78 original. Give time to breathe and then do whatever you want with it 5 or 6 years down the road. But please, for the love of fuck, do not just make Halloween Ends and then Halloween Begins and then because you're going to find yourself right back where you started. Blumhouse, you know it and I know it. You're in honeymoon zone right now, but if you think you're going to get another 6 or 7 movies with James Shoot Courtney as Michael Myers in this Halloween story, you're kidding yourself. Now, hey, prove me wrong and I'll eat crow, but it never bodes well, and it totally defeats the purpose of why you restarted the franchise anyway. Anthony Stanfield sends in $5, says, the mob represents power when they came together. Oh, Michael just slaughtered all of them. Forget it. That's right. Fast Forwards 289 sends in 499, says, what's up, Dave? Little something for the channel. Can't stay, but wanted to jump in and say hi. Thank you very much, Fast Forwards. Really appreciate that. Chris Baber sends in $1.99. Thank you so much, Chris. And says, interested in how they introduce Lindsay and Marion. Yeah, I know how they do. It's nothing crazy. It's just kind of like what they're saying. Jumpman G sends in $5. Thank you, Jumpman G. Can I go back over here now and get it? Yes, I can. Okay, good. Jumpman G. There it is. And then Joseph Charles sends in $5. Thank you, Joseph. Says, glad to find you live so I can give a tip to a channel I've enjoyed for years. Great stuff, Dave. Thank you. Thank you so much, Joseph. I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you for being here, and thank you for supporting the channel. David Coe sends in $9.99. Thank you, David. Says, people should always read the reviews. For instance, someone could give a restaurant a bad review because the coffee sucks. Well, if I don't drink coffee, then that review doesn't apply to me. That's a great point. Always read the reviews, not the star rating beside it, because there are also people out there, and forgive me if you're one of these people, that are just self-entitled pieces of shit. They're just self-entitled, arrogant, pompous pricks. I remember my dentist, okay? So, who I will leave nameless, obviously. I adore my dentist. He's been my dentist for probably close to 20 years now. And I have to drive across the city to get to him. So it's probably about a 45-minute to an hour drive to get to him. And you might be thinking, you drive an hour to your dentist? Well, yeah, but I only go like twice a year. So it's not a big deal, right? And I usually book an appointment on a Saturday, so the traffic is not as bad. It's still bad. It's Toronto, but it's not as bad. And when you find a good dentist who does good work, you want to keep him around, right? For as long as you can. I've never had an issue with him whatsoever. He's an absolute professional and just an amazing dude. And I forget what I was doing. I think I had forgot his phone number. I couldn't find his phone number in my phone and I needed to make an appointment. So I just Googled his phone number and I found the Google rating for his practice. And it was like, it had an average of like 2.5 out of 5 or something. And I was like, what? I was like, what? He's amazing. And I'm like, well, so I started to read the reviews. Well, get this. Somebody was upset and gave a poor 1-star review because the receptionist apparently, now I've never had any issues with the receptionist, and there's, a few of them. And I'm not saying that this customer, this patient, didn't actually experience this. I'm not saying that. But she gave a negative review because, according to her, the receptionist was rude. But if you didn't read that has nothing to do with the quality of work that the dentist does, the attention to detail that he does, the great bedside manners that he has. The quality of his work has nothing to do with that negative review. It's all about the receptionist wronged me, so I gave a negative review. But if I didn't read that review and I was looking for a dentist, I would look at that rating and think that it reflected the quality of the work, right? And it doesn't, and it didn't. So that's why it's so important, to David Coe's point, read reviews beyond headlines. You might find somebody give a 7 out of 10 to Halloween Kills, but they actually give it a pretty good review. And you find that the things that bother them were fair enough, like fair criticism, stuff that maybe even you might agree with, or maybe not. But, you read the review and it's like, oh, that's kind of, because look at the review that's why I read that review of a 6 out of 10. Can we all agree here that the review that was 6 out of 10 was a pretty good review? Do you not agree with that? The reviewer that gave a 6 out of 10, right? I actually read the review on here. It was actually pretty good. Like, it was actually a pretty good, fair review, I thought. But if you had just looked at the number, you may have been like, 6 out of 10. He obviously fucking hated it. He obviously hated it. Obviously, he gave it a 6 out of 10. He hated it. No, he didn't. He didn't at all. So it's so important to just look beyond headlines and read, what are people saying? What exactly are people saying? And then, and only then, can you make an informed opinion, an informed discovery beyond the flashy headlines and a tomato, right? Michael King says yes. I agree. I thought it was a very fair review. He didn't trash it. He wasn't belittling it. He wasn't bad-mouthing it. He gave it a fair, positive, and constructive critique. But we wouldn't have, but there's a portion of the population that would look at that 6 out of 10 and go, oh, well, because of the world we live in, right? And look at my dentist. I mean, Jesus, if I wasn't already his patient, I'd look at that and go, well, geez, his work must suck. No, his work's amazing. This tooth right here, that's a fake tooth. Fake tooth. He put that in 2004. Still amazing today. Obviously, with today's technology, it better be. But he's a great dude. Shout out to my dentist if he's watching. He's not watching. But yeah, anyways, that's a good example. Very true, David Coe. Very true. Bobby Reeves sends in $4.99, says, hey, Dave, been a while. Does the scene where Michael is apprehended bother you? How it goes down in the script? Well, I don't want to say. I don't want to give any spoilers away. Anthony Bazzuto sends in $4.99, says, Dave, when we get to the flashback and kills, do you think Loomis will have any lines, or will he just be in the background figure? I don't want to say, because I've read the script and I don't want to say. I don't want to give any spoilers. Bobby Reeves follows up with another $4.99, says, oh yeah, can I get a Busta Rhymes trick or treat? Trick or treat, motherfucker! There you go, my man. There you go. Darren Sands, the Slaughtered Lamb Movie Podcast. Folks, head over to the Slaughtered Lamb Movie Podcast right now and watch the episode I did with them on Halloween 5. We go through what we like and what we didn't like about Halloween 5. Fun shit. And don't forget to subscribe to them, man. They're awesome stuff. I'm telling you. Throw that link in the description. Darren Sands, Slaughtered Lamb, says, gas money for the dentist. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, that's right. Thank you. I will take that when it comes in, and I will put that for the dentist. Thank you, Darren. Have I got all the super chats? I think I have. I got through that pretty quick. I don't think I've missed the super chats. I don't think so. All right. What are we at here? Where are we going here? I don't want to stay on too much longer because I'm going to be on a show tonight over on Matt. Is it Matt Fauci? I think that's how you say his last name. Matt if you're watching, I'm going to be on Matt's channel tonight with Frank and Darren and Braden Timmons and Barry from Wolfman's Got Nards and James Grimm. And it starts at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight over, oh yeah, there he is, Fauci Cinema. Yeah, I'm going to be, I think that's how you say his last name. I'm going to be on his channel tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make sure you tune in to that. That's going to be a lot of fun talking about our favorite moments from Halloween. Tom Fowler says that's like people giving a Blu-ray 1-star review on Amazon because the case was broken. 100%. And it happens. It happens. And that's because there's no, people, it's all, it does. It totally, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah. There needs to be, the problem is, even if there was, the vast majority of people wouldn't dive into it. We live in a very immediate, listen, most people get there, and I hate to say this, most people, how many times have you been on Facebook or Twitter or what have you, and you'll read the comments and it's very clear that the person having a conniption fit in the comments has not read the article. They've just read the headline. And you know that because of the long diatribe of shit that can be easily explained and answered in the article in question. It happens all the time. That's the world we live in. And I'm not saying that I haven't been guilty of it myself. We all have. But I always try to remember that if a headline grinds my gears, having grown up in a media family, knowing all about headlines, I know what headlines are supposed to do, what they are designed to do. Headlines in a thumbnail, right? Read the reviews, people. Take the time and read. Please. Cypress Pro Wash says, Dave, love the show and insight to Halloween. One small request. Can we get a bit of Dave? Here, I'll put this one on here.
But Dave, I'm offended.
There you go, my man. There you go. There's the link there, folks, in the chat to the Slaughtered Lamb Movie Podcast. They're closing in on 600 subs. It'd be awesome if we could get them to 600 subs this month. That'd be totally cool. Let's see here. What do we got else going on? Ambition 25 says, Dave, I know there's some lawsuit going on about Friday the 13th, but do you know what exactly all about and for what reason? Well, it's a rights issue. The appeal has been resolved. So Victor Miller, who was the writer essentially on the first Friday the 13th movie, the man who created boy Jason, not adult Jason with a hockey mask. That's a different thing. He doesn't have the rights to that. Won his appeal against Sean S. Cunningham, who was the director of the first Friday the 13th movie and acted as a producer. Sean S. Cunningham's argument was essentially that Victor Miller was a work for hire. He hired him and that he shouldn't have the rights to that first movie. And, you can look this up. It's a whole thing. Cunningham had lost and then he appealed and now he's lost the appeal. But do not think that means there's a Friday the 13th movie coming anytime soon. Because you have to remember that Victor Miller does not own the rights to adult hockey mask wearing Jason. So adult hockey mask wearing Jason is still a ways away. You're likely to get more from Vincent DeSanti and the Never Hike Alone franchise long before you get adult hockey mask wearing Jason in any sort of official capacity. But I mean, at the end of the day, the films that they're doing are like, it's like It's Me, Billy. I mean, they're spending the thousands of dollars. They're hiring the same people and the crew that you would, and shooting on the same shit you do, if you were making an official film anyway. So, but you're likely to see more from them than you are a adult Jason Voorhees anytime soon. I think this thing is not over. I don't know what Sean Cunningham's going to do. I don't know how much more he can do. I mean, to sort of appeal the appeal or appeal the loss of the appeal is probably, he's not being advised to do that. He may not even be legally allowed to do it. No, you've lost the appeal. Now, we can't just keep doing this over and over again. So that just might be it. But what is going to happen now? Because Victor Miller doesn't own the rights to adult Jason. So I don't know. I don't think there's going to be a Friday the 13th movie anytime soon. I mean, maybe in the next few years, maybe. But if you think there's going to be a Friday the 13th movie next year, no way. I don't think so. That's my thoughts, though. Apollo Balboa 1985 says, Dave, please explain to me how the fans that loathe Rob Zombie's portrayal of Michael Myers are the same ones salivating on themselves about this version in Kills. This isn't Carpenter's vision. Well, I think it largely has to do not just with the violence that was in Rob Zombie's Halloween, but where Michael Myers came from, the anchor, the foundation for which Rob Zombie's Halloween, the inception for which was the catalyst that drove us to that. I don't think the violence in and of itself was really the problem. I think it was the explanation of the reason of Michael Myers just coming from a white hick trailer trash family with lines like, I'm going to crawl over there and skull fuck you, bitch, and things like that. It seems so ghetto and so trash. And that's the idea, but it feels like that's just Rob Zombie. It's just, he always seems to have a certain level of white trash in his films. And I don't like his movies. I'll be honest with you. I just don't like his movies. I'm not saying he's not talented. I'm not saying that he's not talented or that he doesn't have something to say. But generally speaking, I don't like his movies. It's not my style. The white trash, it's just a weird carnival barker kind of. I just don't like his movies. I'm just not a fan of his films. But I totally believe he should be able to make his movies, and I give credit where credit is due. Halloween 2007 was not just a carbon copy of the 1978 original. He made it his own, and certainly Halloween 2. He made that his own. You tip his hat, or I tip my hat to him. He didn't just do the same thing over again. But it's not my kind of Halloween. And I think it largely has more to do with the explanation of Michael and the backstory and sort of the opening up to what that's all about and the reasons. And it just kind of, the mystique was gone. The mystery was gone. So then he just became a hulking 6'8" dude tearing shit up. And that mystique and that ambiguity and that mystery was just no longer there. And it was just like, what are we watching now? We're just watching, So it's an interesting thing to be able to combine those two worlds, keeping the ambiguity, the ambiguity and the mystique that surrounds the character of Michael Myers, and then introduce a more violent version of that. How is this going to play out? Is it going to feel not right, but is it going to feel cool? Is it going to be like, wow, it's like food, right? It's like, wow, I've never had, I've had a hamburger and I've had peanut butter, but putting peanut butter on a hamburger? I think we should try that. And then they start doing it. And it's like, wow, nobody's thought to do that, right? Nobody's thought to do it. So it's like, Halloween is a hamburger, Rob Zombie's Halloween is peanut butter, and then they're combining. It's like, how is this going to taste? It's either going to be fucking amazing, or it's going to be like, I think I'll just stick with the burger. I think I'll just stick with, the peanut butter. That's a weird sort of analogy, but I think you know what I'm talking about, right? So I think that's largely why. I don't think it's just the brutality in and of itself. I think it was what came before that, because then it was gone. It just was, he was just a guy murdering people and shit. You know what I mean? That's how I see it anyway. Okay, we'll go another 5 minutes or so, another 5 minutes, and then I have to skedaddle. Another 5 minutes, then I have to skedaddle here, folks. I think I got all the super chats. I don't believe I missed any. Yes, Darren seemed to be the last one there, so that is good. I don't believe I received... Yes, I think that is the last one, if I'm not mistaken. All right. Truck Driving Gamer says, just trying to avoid that clickbait most of the time when reacting to headlines. Yeah, I think it's just important some headlines are clickbaity, but I haven't seen too many really at the end of the day. I'm just scrolling back here to see if there's anybody that Happy Sanjo says, are we going to ignore the fact that Dave drives 45 minutes to a 2.5-star dentist? Just playing. Hey man, He's a good dentist. Look at those teeth. Look at those straight teeth. He's good. Of course, he's not responsible for that. Chester Franklin Jr. says, Dave, I want to make a point about the 878 flashback. If Cody Carpenter, or Daniel Davis will use score from Highway 78, what do you think about that for the flashback? I answered this in my last stream, Chester, and I think you were the one that asked it, if I'm not mistaken. They're not using the original themes. It's not just a carbon copy and paste. It is new music. But I'd be open to that, though. I think that would be cool to just copy and paste from the original film. That'd be kind of cool. Matthew Ferreira sends in $4.99, says, Michael in the remake being brutal, I don't mind. But making him sympathetic, I don't like. I certainly hope they don't do that. There is a scene that was in one of the BTS featurettes there with Michael sitting at the vanity mirror, and he's sitting down, and again, we don't have context, we don't have everything that surrounds that. That may, at face value, just seeing it in the BTS featurette, I don't like it. I don't like that he's sitting down. It seems too I want to say human, but too emotional, too introspective. It seems too introspective for Michael Myers. However, when I watch the movie and I see it against the backdrop of everything else that's going on, what immediately preceded it, what comes after it, I might change my tune, and it might make perfect sense to have him do that. But at face value, I feel like he should just be, if he's going to see himself in the mirror, then he should just be standing there seeing himself in the mirror. I don't think and looking at the vanity, remembering, I don't think there's any reason for him to sit down. I know Judith was sitting down, I get that, but I don't think there's any reason for him to sit down. He can just look at the vanity, look at the mirror, see himself in the mirror. The sitting down just seems too emotional, too feeling, too many feels, but we'll see what happens. We'll see how it goes against everything else that's going on. Adam Miles sends in $5, says, keep it on, Dave. Thank you very much, Adam. Bud Gumperson sends in $5.67, says, what do you think they will attempt to do in this film to stand out from the others? A high body count, a very high body count, the highest body count out of any Halloween movie in history. You can take that to the bank. You can expect that. So I think that is going to be very apparent. I think when you watch this, it's going to be very apparent that this is a enormously high body count. That is, I think that's what I'm thinking anyway. That's what I'm thinking. All right. Let's see. Just 2 more minutes to go. 2 more minutes to go in the show, folks. 2 more minutes to go in the show. Evil Alex says, is that the same dentist that made your teeth after you had the hockey accident? Yes. Well, that was the tooth there. I had the hockey, and he was the one that put it in. That's right. Yeah, that's him. MJS Lauren says, if the French braids his hair. Oh, if the French braids, can you imagine? Can you imagine he starts like combing his, if he sits at that mirror and he's there, I don't want to see him pick up a brush and start combing his hair. And he starts combing the hair on the mask. I don't want to see him combing the hair on the mask. We don't need to see that, folks. We don't need to see that. Who knows? That might be interesting. All right, folks, listen, that's going to do it for me here on this Wednesday afternoon show. Just talking about some movie reviews and going over 3 of them. We went over one that was, we went over a 5 out of 10, a 6 out of 10, and a 4 out of 5. Hopefully you'll be able to see sort of some commonalities there. I'd love to know your thoughts. Comment below and let me know your thoughts on, hey, we're 9 days away. 9 days away. Comment below and let me know your thoughts. Are you excited? Are you not excited? Woo! This is exciting. 9 days away, folks. 9 days away. Thank you to my great moderators, Frank Riker, Tabitha Shore, Darren Sands, Chris Baber. You guys are amazing, but you are. And don't forget, I'll be over on Matt. It's Matt, right? Matt Fauci? Yeah, I wanted to say Matthew? Matt? I think it's Matt. I'll be over on his channel tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check that out. In the meantime and in between time, you guys are amazing. You know you are. I will talk to you soon. Cheers.